Nigeria is at a crossroad. At independence, the world saw Nigeria as the light of Africa, a giant nation set to lead the continent to greater glory. But today, 62 years after independence, Nigeria is a giant on its knees. In the near 8 years of APC misrule, they have turned a great people into the beggar nation, the kidnapped capital of the world. Today, the failure of the leadership by the APC-led government stares every Nigerian in the face, and every passing day, the APC leads us closer and closer to the brink. Nigeria needs to be rescued, recovered from the life-threatening existential misrule of the APC, whose government is like a jackboot upon the neck of every Nigerian. Nigeria yearns for the emergence of an experienced, courageous and focused leader to navigate us out of the debilitating hellhole. A leader who can provide a distinct economic, political and social development roadmap. A leader whose plan envisions economic prosperity, equity and justice in a united and secure Nigeria. A leader who has signed an irrevocable contract with the Nigerian nation and her people. A leader who has a covenant with Nigerians, and that leader is ATIKU-OKOWA. Deadline, May 29, 2015. Nigerians, in the hope of ushering in a new era of change and raising the level of progress in our nation, voted in a new government. Numerous promises were made by the APC government led by the former military general Muhammadu Buhari. This was under the change mantra. But almost 8 years later, all promises made by the APC or the All Progressive Congress have become all promises cancelled. All the progress made by previous PDP administrations that had lifted Nigerians out of poverty and turned Nigeria to the largest economy in Africa have been wasted and rolled back to more than 2 decades by the APC misrule. However, ATIKU's 5-point development agenda is a manifesto of hope, a lifeline to lift Nigeria from the dungeon of the past 8 years back into the highway of growth, prosperity and progress. The 5-point development agenda: unity, security, economic prosperity, education and restructuring. The ATIKU-OKOWA development agenda ensures the political and economic transformation of Nigeria into a united, secure and prosperous country where all citizens and residents can live a happy, healthy and productive life. This is anchored on 5 interrelated elements: to promote and restore unity of our diverse peoples, ensure safety and security of life and property of our people while maintaining territorial integrity of our nation's borders, economic transformation for prosperity through the building of a dynamic economy and recover Nigeria from the grips of poverty that now seems to pervade the land, provide qualitative education and restructure the polity to foster unity and enhance stability. These 5 elements dynamically influence one another. ATIKU knows that building a prosperous country will be futile without unity, peace and security. Security is key to creating and sustaining the enabling environment for economic growth and social cohesion. Nigeria's unity currently faces an existential threat. Millions of Nigerians question their allegiance to the nation, while an unprecedentedly increasing number now openly challenge the continued corporate existence of the country through violent agitations and demands for ethno-regional autonomy, a direct result of widespread feelings of marginalization and neglect. These feelings of marginalization and allied grievances have been aggravated by the APC-led government's barely veiled nepotism, particularly in key appointments. More so, the incumbent president's actions, inactions and body language have further worsened the general feeling of disenchantment. Worsening insecurity has directly and adversely impacted Nigeria's fragile economy. The number of conflicts in Nigeria has significantly increased by more than 150% since 2019, resulting in closure of hundreds of schools and businesses. The escalation of terrorism, banditry, and kidnapping for ransom has led to loss of hundreds of thousands of innocent lives. Sadly, we have reached a point where the functions of the state have been usurped by insurgents and terrorists who now hold the nation hostage. This is due to the APC government's lack of purpose, lackluster and inept leadership, policy incoherence, uncertainty, and flip-flops. Insecurity continues to pose significant risk to investment, and droves of potential investors have lost faith in the Nigerian economy. In 2014, in the twilight of the Goodluck Jonathan-led PDP government, Nigeria overtook South Africa as Africa's largest economy. Regrettably, since the advent of the APC government, Nigeria has since lost her position as Africa's preferred investment destination. The APC-led federal government has failed to fix our infrastructure. The power and energy sectors are on the brink of total collapse. In fact, the national grid collapsed twice within 48 hours in March 2022 alone. None of the nation's 4 refineries are functioning. They are all in various states of disrepair and decay. This is in sharp contrast to the pledge made in 2015 by the APC to fix 1 refinery every year.
Refineries, we built 3 more refineries. It used to be one in Fort Harcourt. We built another one in Fort Harcourt, 150,000. It was all of 250,000. Wari 100,000. Kaduna 100,000.
Almost 8 years later, not even 1 refinery is functional. Rising commodity prices, higher energy costs, slow growth in the agricultural sector, disruptions to food imports resulting from border closures and disruptions to food supply resulting from domestic conflicts have pushed millions of Nigerian people below the poverty line and created more misery for the poor in our towns and villages. Basic commodities are now beyond the reach of the average Nigerian, as they are now forced to pay nearly 100% more for a loaf of bread today than they did in 2020. Farmers now pay 200% more for a bag of fertilizer than they did in 2020. Nigerians now pay 400% more for a bag of rice than they did in 2015. The list is endless. We now experience the worst inflation figures in more than half a century. Job losses as well as lack of access to basic amenities have pushed millions of Nigerians below the poverty line. Today, more than 90 million people survive on less than the Naira equivalent of $1.90 a day. As of 2022, 12 out of every 100 of the poorest people in the world live in Nigeria, making us arguably the poverty capital of the world. The education and healthcare sectors are in near total collapse. Strike actions and prolonged closure of our tertiary institutions is now the norm. Sadly and regrettably, the APC-led government continues to blame the opposition and external factors for the pains that the APC has wreaked on our nation. That the APC-led government lacks the critical competencies to initiate and implement innovative solutions to our problems and deliver on their mandate with the desired impact is a matter of fact. In contrast, however, it is the vision of an ATIKU-led PDP government to, unquote, foster a united, secure and prosperous Nigeria in which all citizens can live a happy, healthy and productive life. An ATIKU-OKOWA government shall strengthen the relevant institutions that will enable the government to guarantee the protection of lives and properties. It shall build a strong, resilient and prosperous economy that creates jobs and economic opportunities and leave the poor out of poverty. In fact, poverty reduction is the centerpiece of ATIKU's economic development agenda. The 5-point development agenda of an ATIKU-led PDP administration shall provide the appropriate political leadership that will rescue and recover Nigeria from the APC and save our nation from falling over the precipice. This is a covenant, an irrevocable contract with all Nigerians. All the 5 elements of PDP ATIKU-OKOWA Development Agenda influence one another in a dynamic manner, because the dream of building a prosperous economy will remain a mirage without unity, peace, and security. Sadly today, Nigerians suffer from banditry, insurgency, terrorist attacks, kidnappings for ransom, armed robberies and thuggery. Terrorists, separatists, bandits, insurgents, and other rogue non-state actors have usurped the functions of the state. The Nigerian public education system is grossly ill-equipped. Millions of our children are kept out of school, while we continue to produce graduates whose skills and competencies are not aligned with the needs of our communities and our industries. The quality of our workforce is adversely and negatively affected by incessant industrial actions by the Academic Staff Union of Universities ASU and other unions of educational institutions. This undoubtedly has far-reaching consequences for the economy. The ATIKU administration shall improve and strengthen the education system to equip its recipients with the appropriate education and skills that are required to compete in the new global order, an order driven by innovation, science and technology, and to lead healthy, productive and meaningful lives. The ATIKU-OKOWA 5-point agenda is the roadmap for the economic transformation of Nigeria for prosperity. All 3 key sectors of the economy, namely agriculture, oil and gas and manufacturing, are almost comatose. The oil sector has experienced a decline in 19 of the 30 quarters since 2014. The agricultural sector's annual growth rate has plummeted. It has nosedived to an all-time low. The manufacturing sector faces significant challenges. Enterprises struggle to survive in a very hostile business environment, occasioned by the deficit in infrastructure, electricity supply, corruption, access to finance, insecurity, and political instability. The situation is grim. Today, more than 20 million people are unemployed, 70 million more than in 2015. More than 18.2 million are underemployed. The number of fully employed persons declined by 54.41% in 5 years between 2015 and 2020. The unemployment situation is worse for young people aged between 15 and 24 years, with the unemployment rate currently at 53.4% and 35.2% for women as at 2021. Despite its vast resources, our country is rated as one of the poorest countries in the world, with the highest levels of inequality amongst its people. According to the most recent statistics, more than 90 million Nigerians live at or below the poverty line. More than 133 million Nigerians are considered multidimensionally poor. They are not only cash poor, but have limited access to the basic needs of life, including water, sanitation, electricity, and decent housing. Furthermore, Nigeria's inhospitable business environment means the economy continues to fail to attract foreign direct investment (FDI) into the non-oil sector. Thus, as a result of a persistent revenue shortfall, federal government budgets since 2016 have been presented with huge deficit. Paradoxically, this has increased the appetite for loans and grow debt service obligations. This is currently at an unsustainable level. According to the Debt Management Office, Nigeria's debt stock has risen from 11.20 trillion naira in 2014 to 42.9 trillion naira in 2022. This has further put a strain on government revenues due to associated high debt service costs. For example, in 2021, more than 80% of the total revenue was needed just for debt service. Inflation has risen to unprecedentedly astronomical levels. Even official inflation data shows a food inflation rate of 19.5% in May 2022 as compared to 15% in January 2020. The pressure on the naira has heightened in recent months. As of June 2022, the official exchange rate was 415 naira 65 kobo to $1, according to the CBN 2022 estimates. But this exceeded 800 naira to $1 in the parallel market in the second and third quarters of 2022. Nigeria's ability to defend the naira is weakened by the slow accretion of foreign reserves as external reserves remain below $40 billion despite higher oil prices. External reserves are likely to decline further as CBN continues to intensify its forex intervention, which leaves several billions of naira to opportunists, rent seekers, middlemen, and fraudsters. It is significant to point out that one of the APC's cardinal promises in their change agenda in 2015 was the achievement of a 1 naira to $1 parity. ATIKU's response to our economic development challenges will be to design and implement coherent and comprehensive strategies and policies. Our policy priority is to double the size of the economy and achieve a GDP of approximately $900 billion by 2030. This will raise Nigeria's GDP per capita from the current levels of approximately $2,000 to $5,000, with an additional significant impact on jobs and poverty. This will be achieved by focusing on the following economic development pillars: promote economic diversification and linkages between agriculture, industry, and micro and small enterprises. This will engender employment and poverty reduction. Improve productivity of MSMEs and achieve significant transformation of primary produce into processed and manufactured goods for export. Promote social development while improving Nigeria's access to qualitative basic public services such as water and sanitation, electricity, and housing. Ensure a reduction in infrastructure deficit to support the full mobilization of the economic sectors and to enhance the carrying capacity of the economy. Reform public institutions to engender efficiency in service delivery, as well as deepen transparency, accountability, and the rule of law. To achieve this in a seamless manner, the ATIKU government shall reaffirm the criticality of private sector leadership and greater private sector participation in development. Reposition the public sector to focus on its core responsibility of facilitation and enabling the appropriate legal and regulatory framework for rapid economic and social development, while breaking government monopoly in all infrastructure sectors such as the refineries, rail transportation, and power transmission, etc. The promotion of public-private partnership will help introduce reforms that will strengthen the capacity of the private sector to invest, create productive jobs, generate wealth, and lift the poor out of poverty. In promoting the agricultural sector, the ATIKU administration shall support women engaged in agricultural activities through the following: provision of facilities for the procurement of machinery and equipment to help set up and run cottage and small-scale industries, creation of employment opportunities at ward levels through the establishment of enterprises and pilot projects in the wards, improve the linkage between small-scale farmers and commercial agricultural processors, as well as large-scale retail outlets by providing access to finance, agricultural input, and a guaranteed buyback mechanism. In the manufacturing sector, we shall achieve a sustained increase in manufacturing output. By 2030, the manufacturing sector's output shall be expanded from 9% to 30% of the GDP. Gradually reduce the sector's dependence on imported raw materials as input into the production process. Achieve a diversified production structure with more processing of domestic raw materials, and promote the competitiveness of the sector nationally and internationally. In promoting the MSME sector, we shall establish an economic stimulus fund with an initial investment capacity of approximately $10 billion to prioritize support to MSMEs across all the economic sectors. This offers the greatest opportunities for achieving inclusive growth. The world currently experiences an energy transition as the world needs less and less oil. However, the oil and gas will continue to play a critical role in Nigeria's economic growth and development as the 10th largest oil producer in the world. The ATIKU government shall therefore deploy modern technology in pipeline surveillance as an optimal way of combating the menace of pipeline vandalism and crude oil theft. Also, the ATIKU government will intensify engagement with local oil producing communities. Given the country's high demand for petroleum and petrochemical products, Nigeria's existing refining infrastructure is at worst disgraceful and at best less than desirable. With a total installed capacity of 445,000 barrels per day, the nation's 4 refineries have struggled to produce less than 10% of installed capacity. This makes Nigeria by far the most inefficient OPEC member country in terms of both the percentage of installed refining capacity that works and the percentage of crude oil that is refined, trailing behind countries such as Iraq and Libya that are at war or experiencing civil strife. The federal government shall enhance local capacity to produce and process larger quantities of our crude for domestic consumption and export to the rest of Africa. Despite its huge potentials, the solid mineral sector has been largely neglected by successful governments. ATIKU will stimulate domestic refining of mineral oils. This will help create jobs and alleviate poverty. The ATIKU administration will harness the potentials of promoting the new economy. We shall establish a technology support program to be funded by a diaspora bond. Tertiary institutions, research institutes, innovative enterprise institutes, and relevant government agencies will be encouraged to develop research capabilities, while our youth will have enhanced and advanced trainings in fields such as renewable energy, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology. ICT literacy will be made compulsory in our primary and secondary schools. We shall implement 2 major interventions to break the jinx in the financing of infrastructure in Nigeria. First, we shall establish an infrastructure debt fund (IDF) with an initial investment capacity of approximately $20 billion. The primary aim is to mobilize domestic and international private resources for the financing and delivery for large infrastructure projects across all sectors of the economy. Also, the scope of InfraCredit, the Infrastructure Credit Guarantee Company Limited, will be broadened to complement the operation of the IDF by de-risking investments in infrastructure to build investor confidence. In the transportation infrastructure sector, we shall pursue a more diversified and integrated transportation system. The overarching objectives will be to develop a new national transport policy and introduce a new national transportation regulation system. Achieve policy consistency by vesting the Ministry of Transportation with policy and regulatory oversight. Promote public-private partnerships for the development of transport infrastructure. Develop and rehabilitate the connecting road networks across all geopolitical zones. Will we encourage transportation development around the nation's agricultural and industrial clusters? This will enhance linkages to agricultural zones and develop agricultural collection and distribution hubs in partnership with the states. In the railway sector, we shall implement a vertically integrated rail privatization, especially for freight-based railways. We shall achieve accelerated construction of up to 5,000 kilometers of modern railway lines. Operators will be allowed to operate across privatized networks via access agreements. ATIKU's administration will set up the National Railway Development Agency to take ownership of the regulatory setting and determine public service obligations. Our administration will declare a state of emergency in the power sector to ensure that electricity supply improves across the country and investor confidence is restored to the sector. Transmission capability is severely constrained, and this creates a bottleneck in the supply of electricity. According to the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission report, the average actual generation in Nigeria is less than 4,000 megawatts, while the highest generation ever recorded in Nigeria was briefly 5,074 megawatts in February 2016. This, however, is far below the installed capacity of 11,165.4 megawatts. Besides, this is further less than the quoted national demand forecast of 19,100 megawatts. It must be noted that for grid stability, transmission capacity must be greater than that of generation. This is currently not the case. Furthermore, our grid is mainly radial, which is not an ideal design for resilient electricity transmission infrastructure. Ahead of procuring additional generation, both transmission and distribution capabilities will be enhanced with government and private sector support for investments. We shall create energy security by diversifying the pool of electricity generation with a mix of renewable energy such as hydro, solar, and biofuel, along with other non-renewable energy sources such as coal and gas, in addition to natural gas. For the long term, nuclear power will be an option for consideration. In the interim, we shall adopt short-term emergency measures that will include the implementation of an emergency power program, EPP, that can deliver additional capacity in certain key areas. As a short-term measure to ensure enhanced supply within the first year of the new administration, we shall provide EPPs for key urban areas: Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja, Kaduna, Onitsha, Kano, Aba, and Benin City. Ensure an accelerated procurement cycle to achieve timely delivery of the EPPs. Undertake tariff adjustments to make it viable for operators and governments to make the new investment in the power generation, transmission, and distribution industry. In the technology infrastructure sector, we shall implement a 4-year plan for the digitization of major government operations, such as procurement, to achieve transparency and eliminate leakages. We shall strengthen the use of business intelligence software to analyze public service productivity. In addition, the private sector will be supported to improve the technology startup ecosystem by providing incubation, financing, and infrastructure. As for housing infrastructure, Nigeria faces a severe housing deficit. Estimates by the Federal Mortgage Bank indicate a deficit of at least 15 million housing units. On the country's debt burden, we shall put in place the following measures. Slow down the rate of debt accumulation by promoting more public-private partnerships in critical infrastructure funding and identify more innovative funding options. Review the current utilization of all borrowed funds and ensure that they are deployed more judiciously. The ATIKU government shall create fiscal buffers to absorb shocks, streamline the functions of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, SS Crude Account, and the Stabilization Fund, and utilize them for what they are meant to be used for. In the Niger Delta and coastal frontline areas, virtually all states are faced with environmental challenges resulting from human economic activity and the effects of global warming, while the menace of rapid desertification in the north continues to ravage communities and intensify poverty and pose security challenges. On the other hand, the menace of gully erosion in southeastern Nigeria is making community survival, agricultural production, and environmental sustenance almost impossible. The middle belt areas of the nation continues to be hounded by past and present human material exploitation activities. These challenges will be tackled head-on. The ATIKU-OKOWA-led PDP government shall give prime attention to human capital development because our youthful and agile population is an asset to the nation. 70% of our population is below the age of 30 years, while nearly 50% of Nigeria's 200+ million people are women. Sadly, statistics of our current human capital index are grim. Life expectancy at birth averages 54.7 years, in contrast with Egypt 72 years, South Africa 64.1 years, Kenya 66.7 years, and Ghana 64.1 years. Expected years of schooling is 8.4 years. This is low compared to South Africa 13.8 years, Egypt 13.3 years, Ghana 11.5 years, and Kenya 11.3 years. It is currently estimated that Nigeria has more than 18.5 million out-of-school children, accounting for 47.3% of the global out-of-school children population. This is the highest in the world. Furthermore, Nigerians presently spend more than $1 billion annually to acquire education abroad. To reverse this negative trend, substantial resources must be channeled into the education sector for primary, secondary, and tertiary education. The education system faces imminent collapse. More than 630 days of ASUU strike under this current administration, inadequate and irregular funding at all levels, 50% primary school dropout rate. Only about 16% of secondary school students gain university admission. Gender disparity is across all levels of education. The ATIKU PDP administration shall focus immediately on meeting our obligations to the students, teachers, and other stakeholders with a deep sense of patriotism and responsibility as dictated by the realities of our circumstances today. However, our long-term reforms in the education sector after Nigeria has achieved negotiated restructuring shall focus on 5 pillars. 1. The state governments will assume responsibility for all federal institutions located in their respective areas. This shall include federal unity schools, federal government-funded universities, polytechnics, technical colleges, and colleges of education. 2. The development and promotion of science and technical education for the creation of skills for the new economy. The private sector shall be incentivized to increase its level of investments in science and technical education through tax breaks, grants, and loans. 3. Increase investment in education infrastructure. 4. Improve access to education at all levels. 5. Promote private-public partnership in education by establishing a private education regulatory agency to set standards. Healthcare will be a cardinal priority because our healthy nation is a wealthy nation. Like in most other sectors, the current situation is almost untenable. Over 5,000 doctors left Nigeria in the last 8 years. More than $1 billion is spent annually on medical tourism. Average life expectancy is a mere 54 years. Doctor-to-patient ratio is 1 doctor for 6,000 patients. Infant mortality rate is 72 deaths per 1,000 births. Maternal mortality rate averages 917 deaths per 100,000 births. Over 75% of Nigerians do not have access to clean water. Nigeria recorded about 200,000 malaria-related deaths in 2021 alone. To ensure improved healthcare delivery, the ATIKU-led PDP government shall immediately implement the National Health Act of 2014, undertake administrative reforms, facilitate universal health coverage, expand access to primary health care, improve care and clinical governance, increase the number of professionals in the health sector, and finally, unlock the market potential of the Nigerian health sector. To achieve the above listed, our healthcare delivery initiative shall strengthen the healthcare system by sustaining and maximizing the use of e-health to facilitate faster healthcare delivery, reinforce the capacities of local government areas in primary healthcare management. Job creation and entrepreneurship development. ATIKU's job creation strategy is based on 4 pillars. A growing economy. A critical policy priority in this regard is to accelerate the growth of the real sector of the economy to open up self- and wage-paying job opportunities. A productive MSME sector will be vibrant with over 40 million enterprises employing over 100 million people. Innovative skills and entrepreneurship programs. This is targeted mainly at the youth, who will be empowered via skills acquisition as well as vocational and entrepreneurial training. Strengthen policy and institution. The successful implementation of these various policies and programs will require strong and efficient institutions. To achieve our policy objectives, the governments at the federal and state levels in collaboration with the private sector will pursue the job creation agenda using the following 4 pathways. The entrepreneurship pathway, the school to jobs pathway, the informal sector pathway to jobs. Here, we shall relaunch the National Open Apprenticeship Program, focusing on young men and women who may not have had the opportunity to attend school or complete basic education. An MSME ICT Special Entrepreneurship Pathway. The policy objective of an ATIKU government will be to immediately halt the drift into the poverty trap and lift at least 10 million people from poverty annually. By implication, over 70 million Nigerians will be lifted out of poverty, and the average poverty head count will drastically be reduced to less than 25% by the year 2030. Youth and women are critical to the survival of all societies. Empowering them is an absolute necessity. Women contribute nearly 50% of Nigeria's population and are less empowered, financially, politically, socially, culturally, and economically within and outside the home. There are increasing cases of cruelty against women, such as domestic violence, sex trafficking, abuse, and rape. Also, Nigeria has a youth population of approximately 140 million, or 70% of an estimated population of 200 million people. The Nigerian youth face disproportionate social, economic, and political barriers which prevent them from unleashing their full potential. The thrust of our youth and women empowerment policy is multidimensional, from education to enhanced access to employment opportunities as well as financial inclusion. To achieve the core objectives, we shall prioritize the following. Increase the number of appointments made to women and young people. We commit to setting aside at least 40% of all political appointments in government to women and young people. States and the private sector will be encouraged to support studies for girls in sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Provide microfinance and financing schemes that is targeted at the youth and women. Focus investments in human development priorities such as health and education, and create a special tribunal for crimes against women, and actively encourage the passage of the Gender Equality Bill in an acceptable form. Persons with disabilities. The World Health Organization's 2011 World Disability Report says about 15% of Nigeria's population, or about 25 million people, have some form of disability or impairment. The ATIKU-OKOWA government shall aggressively pursue the full implementation and enforcement of the existing policy on people with special needs, such as Discrimination Against People with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018. We shall ensure that ministries, departments, and agencies adhere strictly to the provisions regarding the employment of PWDs, while private enterprises offering job opportunities are incentivized with tax credits. ATIKU's government will place more emphasis on the rehabilitative needs of persons with special needs as productive members of society. Culture and tourism. In the culture and tourism sector, we will transform the culture and tourism sector into a big foreign exchange earner. More tourist destinations will be developed by states to attract home-based and foreign tourists, while the Nigerian film industry will continue to be motivated and promoted. An ATIKU-OKOWA government shall encourage talented individuals to harness and showcase abroad aspects of our literary, material, and performance traditions, promote traditional festivals to revive the culture and traditions of our people, and revive national parks driven by the private sector. Strengthen and promote the annual National Festival of Arts and Culture. Commit more resources for the promotion of culture and tourism-related activities, and advocate for the granting of loans and grants to qualified practitioners. For Nigeria to achieve a balanced, high-growth economy, the key strengths of businesses in the arts, entertainment, and creative industry sector must be nurtured. Unfortunately, progress in the sector is hampered by obstacles such as funding challenges, the apathy of banks and investors towards financing untested creative projects, poor infrastructure, copyright infringement and piracy, uncoordinated distribution and marketing channels, poor capacity building, and inadequate tax incentives, etc. To surmount these myriad obstacles, we shall provide financial support and protection to the arts, entertainment, and creative industry through interventions and schemes that offer subsidies to the creative industry. The ATIKU PDP government shall promote effective digitization of Nigeria's entertainment and creative industry to ensure better quality and compatibility with international standards. We shall ensure the tax environment is investment friendly. We shall ratify the European Convention on Cinematographic Co-Production so that the industry can be more globally competitive and free to embark on co-production with foreign counterparts. Industry regulators will be encouraged to establish structures and provide an enabling business environment for all industry stakeholders, whether local or foreign. Legislation will be introduced and enforced to address the issues of piracy and intellectual property theft. The Nigerian Copyright Commission will be reformed to be more responsive to present-day operating realities. The ATIKU government shall aggressively promote the Nigerian film, arts, entertainment, and creative industry, both as a revenue generation enterprise as well as a tool for international diplomacy. The continued and enhanced sports development is integral to promotion of national unity. Sports activities are a major source of recreation and therefore have the potential to excite and unite people. And it has been repeatedly proven that our sporting heroes are detribalized individuals. We shall harness the limitless opportunities in sports through investment in new sports, while popular ones will be encouraged for optimal youth participation. First, we shall improve sporting facilities in all the states of the country by elevating them to international standards with sustainable maintenance programs put in place, and improve the National Sports Festival. Upgrade 6 sporting centers in the 6 geopolitical zones in partnership with private organizations and with the cooperation of states. Encourage funding for sports club promotion. Support and promote school inter-house sports with a catch them young philosophy. Inter-house sports will be mandatory, and there will be strategic promotion of inter-school sports events. Government shall partner with the private sector to open sports academies for persons with disabilities to increase our citizens' participation in Paralympics, Special Olympics, etc. Security. Insecurity is the most worrisome challenge for hundreds of millions of Nigerians today. Between 1967 to January 1970, Nigeria fought a regrettably avoidable 30-month civil war. This has left the country with deep scars, some healed and others still in the process. Nigerians are disappointed with the low quality of leadership and the leadership selection processes at the national and sub-national levels. This leadership crisis has heightened to stratospheric heights in the years of the APC in power. Nigerians have watched in shock an APC leadership that is highly insensitive to their diversities, nonchalant to their aspirations, and completely indifferent to their hopes and fears. The ruling APC has promoted nepotism, narrow-minded and parochial sectional interest into national policy. Nigerians are now forced to live with a leadership that by its words and actions promotes disunity to the detriment of national cohesion and development. At no point in our history has Nigeria been so divided. In the face of the leadership failing of the ruling APC, it is the resolve of an ATIKU-OKOWA-led PDP government to engender justice, fairness, equity, and responsibility in the polity, to ensure the security of citizens and territorial integrity of the nation's borders. There shall be a massive recruitment into all of Nigeria's security outfits, especially the Nigeria Police, which currently has less than 400,000 personnel. In 4 years, an additional 1 million policemen and women will be added to the existing number. In the light of current challenges, community and local policing has become an existential imperative. We shall initiate a constitutional amendment to allow states who are willing and able to do so to establish their own state or local police. This is to enhance local security based on the laws of these states as distinct from federal laws, which will be enforced by the federal police. In addition, the ATIKU government shall enhance capacity of security personnel while improving their welfare. We shall profile alternative approaches to conflict resolution in dealing with insurgency, such as diplomacy, intelligence, improved border control, traditional institutions, and good neighborliness. More so, there shall be strategic engagements with agitating groups, but without compromising Nigerians' national sovereignty. Other measures to combat insurgency, crime, and insecurity shall include leveraging new technologies in fighting crime, ensuring accelerated administration of justice without fear or favor, promoting regional security cooperation to curb the spread of illicit and small arms and weapons, strengthening existing personal identification infrastructure in the short and middle term to enable more Nigerians to be captured in the NIN by 2030 in accordance with the SDG 16.9. Integrate the multiple identification processes and numbers in existence, such as BVN, international passport, voter registration numbers, etc. This will streamline citizen identification and consolidation of the nation's biometrics database in the long term by the year 2030. Reactivating meaningful registration at birth as a way to reduce crime and protect Nigerians. Conducting the next national population census as the basis for further development planning and as part of vital security registration in the country. Anti-corruption and the rule of law. Fighting corruption was one of the most touted pledges of the current APC-led government on assumption of office in 2015. But regrettably today, it has engendered the most egregious looting of our nation's resources and commonwealth. Snakes swallowing money, rats eating billions of naira, and monkeys cutting off millions of dollars. Corruption during the APC years have taken on monumentally comic proportions. 2015 to 2023 amount to APC's years of the locust. It is the popular dictum, Nigeria must kill corruption before corruption kills Nigeria. Regrettably, there is the absence of a coordinated national anti-corruption strategy that would foster transparency and accountability in a non-partisan manner. The ATIKU-PDP government shall launch a comprehensive national anti-corruption strategy that is based on the rule of law, separation of powers, neutrality, and non-partisanship. To this end, we shall set up a corruption cases review committee with representation from organizations such as the Nigerian Bar Association, non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and the media to review all major corruption cases. Also, the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and the Office of the Minister of Justice will be separated. We shall inaugurate a Presidential Data Integration Committee. This will improve the integration of all the country's national databases such as the National Identity Management Commission, Corporate Affairs Commission, Federal Inland Revenue Services, Nigeria Immigration Service and International Passport, Nigeria Communication Commission, Central Bank of Nigeria, Code of Conduct Bureau, and the Independent National Electoral Commission to ensure information and intelligence sharing, robust credit system, access tracing, and the detection of financial crimes. Our government will ensure that the state is subject to the law, neutrality, and non-partisanship on all anti-corruption matters. We shall promote the supremacy of law over all persons and authorities, the supremacy of the Constitution, the independence of the legislature, and the independence of the judiciary. This will ensure the central place of the rule of law. Restructuring and devolution of powers. Nigeria needs to be fundamentally restructured. The current structural arrangement in Nigeria does not respond to the needs of the people. Nigeria has been operating a faulty system of federalism, especially under successive military governments. True federalism ensures that a strong federal government guarantees national unity while allowing various parts of the country to set up their own priorities. Ours has been a complex federal structure with a high degree of centralization. It is worthy of note that out of every naira in the federation account, 56 kobo goes to the federal government and 4 other special accounts which are managed only by the federal government. Consequently, Nigerians have clamored for restructuring so as to engender more inclusive governance. But to make this happen, however, will require a strong political will and a commitment to a new development agenda with a focus on wealth creation by the federating units rather than wealth distribution from the federal government to states and local governments. Undertake far-reaching economic reforms to make subnational economies stronger, irrespective of their resource endowments. Devolve more powers to the federating units, along with the appropriate resources required through negotiations with stakeholders at all levels. Powers shall be devolved to the states and local governments in areas such as education, agriculture, and health, with the central government retaining the sole responsibility for quality assurance, policy standardization, and implementation, while their delivery will be handled by the states and the local governments. The central government will retain the role of providing the required direction for the economy, defense, and national security, currency, international affairs and foreign policy, customs, citizenship and immigration, firearms, and related matters. Powers over minerals and mines, internal security including police, law and order, railways, communications, transportation, environment, land matters, etc. will be on the concurrent list. States where deposits of mineral resources are found should have control over these resources and pay royalties to the federal government. Local government will be guaranteed as an independent tier of government. Nigeria's common resources will be shared equitably in accordance with a new revenue allocation formula to be negotiated through the National Assembly. Each tier of government will get its fair share of the common revenue commensurate to its responsibilities under a new constitution. We will ensure spatially balanced investments and ensure a more even distribution of infrastructure investment across different regions through a carefully designed incentive program. It is therefore a priority of the ATIKU administration to work towards a true federal system that provides for the federal government and guarantees national unity while allowing the federating units to set their own priorities. Only a strong-willed leadership can achieve this monumental task. The ATIKU administration will make the justice sector people-centered and equity-driven. Like the NSAS movement has taught us, systems of oppression take time to dismantle. They are so pervasive and endemic that it's often difficult to disentangle them from the institutions and processes we build. Nigeria will comply with SDG 16 by striving to make justice accessible to all while making it affordable, timely, and effective. Together, we shall embark on the following. Encourage more states to domesticate the Administration of Criminal Justice Act of 2015 to improve the efficacy of justice delivery. Increase the use of alternative dispute resolutions within the justice delivery system. Strengthen public interest litigations and amplify access to legal aid services. Ensure that our correctional facilities operate with an implementable plan of integration of offenders into society under the Nigerian Correctional Services Act of 2019. Foreign policy. The ATIKU-OKOWA government will ensure a robust and integrated foreign policy, and Africa will remain the centerpiece of the government's foreign policy. We are conscious of the fact that the greatest challenges confronting the African continent are those of poverty and armed conflict. The nature of this conflict in Africa has changed from interstate wars to internal armed conflict, often initiated by armed non-state actors with serious consequences for the socio-economic development, peace, and stability of the continent. ATIKU's government shall promote Nigeria's national interest and ensure greater visibility in international politics. We shall retool Nigeria's foreign policy instrument, taking prime cognizance of the complexity of modern-day diplomacy. We shall reactivate the Presidential Advisory Council on Foreign Affairs and convene an all-Nigerian conference on foreign policy to promote national consensus on our national interest to guide our foreign policies. We will provide for the smooth and effective running of Nigeria's diplomatic missions. To this effect, we shall establish a Foreign Service Commission specifically for the conduct and management of our diplomatic services. We shall restore Nigeria's dignity abroad by rebuilding its national image through economic vibrancy and diplomatic strategy. We shall include in the mandate of the Office of Diaspora Affairs the Diaspora Professional Investments Unit as part of the effort to turn our current brain drain to brain gain. Our foreign policy thrust shall protect law-abiding Nigerians wherever they may reside, anywhere in the world. In ECOWAS, we shall strengthen our efforts at regional integration and sustain our support for the full implementation of the ECOWAS Charter and make positive strides towards the harmonization of the macroeconomic policies of West African countries. We shall pursue the completion of the Lagos-Abidjan Highway project to support the ECOWAS regional integration agenda. This will stimulate investments, reduce poverty, and improve security. We shall continue Nigeria's cooperation with and participation in the United Nations Interagency Task Force on Boko Haram, ISWAP, and ISIS in order to save the Lake Chad. Furthermore, we shall intensify collaboration with neighboring countries in the Lake Chad Basin Commission and Benin Republic, as well as interested international partners in combating the threat of armed insurgency and terrorism in Nigeria, while increasing economic activities around the Lake Chad Basin. We shall mobilize ECOWAS member states for the full implementation of the 2006 ECOWAS Small Arms Convention to control the movement of illicit small arms and light weapons across West African borders. On the world stage, our global foreign policy will be fully implemented through concerted efforts at increasing the current level of our international visibility, credibility, and respect through active participation in international affairs. Enhance the role of Nigeria in the United Nations support operations through engagement and commitment of our troops. Increase Nigeria's competitiveness in the global economy, both as a solo undertaking and through existing treaty-based cooperative agreements with international entities that will also increase foreign direct investment in the Nigerian economy, and ensure that Nigeria meets the Sustainable Development Goals and prepare for permanent membership of the UN Security Council. This would finally accord Nigeria its rightful place in the Committee of Nations. Nigeria urgently needs a leadership that can commit itself to the sacred and beneficial creed of democracy, freedom, social justice, equity, accountability, transparency, and the rule of law. Nigeria urgently requires a leadership that can summon the courage to address genuine grievances justly and fairly where they exist. Nigeria is in dire need of a leadership that can vigorously mobilize and organize the nation for common good. A leadership that is sensitive and humane to the concerns of citizens. Nigeria envisions an upright leadership that is sensitive to our rich diversities and one that is positively committed to uniting the people and weeding a sense of belonging, as well as working with all Nigerians to build a critical mass that can collectively move the nation forward. In the light of this, the APC has failed to deliver on their mandate and consequently failed the nation. The 2023 elections presents another opportunity for Nigerians to ensure the emergence of an experienced, courageous, and result-focused leader to find a way through our country's tough situation and make a positive difference. ATIKU Abubakar can provide that desired leadership. He is ready to provide the appropriate leadership to implement a robust development agenda and recover the country from the abyss. He has a history of economic reform and political transformation and a deep understanding of our economy and its challenges as a private businessman for many years. ATIKU was Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria from 1999 to 2007 in an administration that demonstrated a willingness to reform and implement a formal development agenda. The National Economic Empowerment Development Strategy NEEDS, the State Economic Empowerment Development Strategy SEEDS, and the Local Economic Empowerment Development Strategy LEADS. ATIKU was instrumental in the design of a private sector revival strategy and advocated for the opening of the economy for private sector investment in the information technology IT sector, which today is undeniably the fastest growing services sector in the Nigerian economy. ATIKU has a vision for a united, prosperous society in which all citizens can realize their full potential in a secure and decent environment. He believes that the foundation of any government is rooted in a social contract. A government finds legitimacy in the expectation that it shall work for the common good and to defend the citizens' inalienable rights to life. This social contract is made manifest in policies and programs contained in ATIKU's 5-point agenda, an end-to-end policy that straddles the value chain, a collection of the PDP's policy commitments and responsibilities under the social contract. This is the ATIKU-OKOWA's Covenant with Nigerians.